I'm sure we'll have some folks joining us last minute, but I want to take a moment and thank you all for joining us for Living Lakes Canada's annual general meeting. My name is Maggie. I'm acting as facilitator this evening, but I will be handing the meeting off to our chair, Laura Bell. So Laura, without further ado.
Hello, everyone, and welcome again to Living Lakes Canada 2026 Annual General Meeting. The meeting is now called to order. So my name is Laura Bell. I am the chair of Living Lakes Canada, and I'll be the chair of this evening's meeting. It's my first year to do this, so please bear with me. Living Lakes Canada acknowledges that our work in water stewardship takes place across the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of many Indigenous nations and peoples throughout what is now known as Canada. We are committed to listening and learning in partnership with Indigenous peoples to protect fresh water for generations to come. As board chair, I'm very grateful to live in both Briscoe in the Southern Interior as well as Bowser on Vancouver Island. These are the traditional territories of the Chinaka and the Shawapa peoples, and the unceded traditional territory of the Qualicum First Nation, the traditional keepers of their land. As we gather today, I am mindful of this sacred resource. Water is the connector of ecosystems, cultures, and communities. It has a power that has brought so many of us together, not just in this moment, but since time immemorial. As we move through this evening's meeting, I invite you all to reflect on how water has brought you here today and how we can work together to support water stewardship across the many areas that we all serve. So I see that we have, I don't know, how many participants have we got? We have 52 participants, but I can see that we have at least 5 members here, which is what we need for a quorum. So we are good to go. There are a few housekeeping items that I'd like to cover before we get started. This AGM is being recorded. A recording link will be sent to all the registrants. Questions are encouraged. Either you can ask your questions either during a particular section, or you can wait to the end where we'll have a dedicated question and answer. To ask questions, you can use Zoom chat or the hand raise function. So voting for motions will occur, and I'll be asking for motions and for someone to second, and then for all in favor and so on. Only LLC members can vote, and if you'd like to vote next year, then contact info at Living Lakes Canada for information. If you get disconnected during this meeting, just reconnect using the link that you joined with. So we'll start off with presenting the agenda. There we go. All of you, or members anyway, would have been sent this agenda as part of your package to join this meeting. I'd like to ask for, well, I can go through this quickly. We'll have the chair's report, financial statements and treasurer's report, election of directors, executive director's report, and then our feature presentation this evening is mapping water, strengthening preparedness, and building resilience. And then we'll have a dedicated question and answer session. Do I have someone that would like to make a motion to approve the agenda for this evening? Okay, thank you, Maggie. Is there someone that can second it?
I'll
I can.
second that, Andy Miller.
Okay, thank you, Andy, for seconding that. All those in favor? So here's the bit of an issue. I can only see 6 people here. So I don't know if anyone else can see all the people to tell me if it's all in favor or if there are any opposed. Anyway, all in favor? And just raise your hand if you're in favor. And if you do oppose it, maybe raise your hand in the chat so that we can see that. Okay, so you're opposed, Arlo? Is anyone
That's
opposed?
what I was sitting.
Okay. Okay. So we'll sort of work through this as we go along. But I don't see any opposed, so the agenda is accepted as is. The next thing we have to go through is our the minutes from last year's meeting from the 2025 AGM. That also was sent out in a package to the members ahead of time. So do I have a motion to approve last year's minutes?
Make that motion.
Thanks, Scott.
I can second it. This is Anne.
Is Laura frozen? Is she having a?
It might be.
Nope.
We'll just give her a moment here and hopefully her connectivity comes back. Looks like she might be trying to reconnect, so everyone just bear with us for a moment here. Hopefully she's on her way back to us. I'm sure at this point in time we're all very familiar with Zoom technical difficulties, so we'll just give it a moment here and hopefully she'll be on her way back. Just heard from one of my colleagues. We're just trying to get Laura on the phone to see what's happening on her end. So again, sorry folks, just bear with us as we work through this. Thank you so much for your patience.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're
Yes, we
back.
can.
I don't know what happened there, and I apologize to everyone. Anyway, it shows a different name because I've had to sign in on a different device. So back to where we were. I'm sorry for wasting people's time there, but I'll go back to my chair's report. Earlier this spring, I was driving up the Columbia Valley on a sunny morning with freshly snow-covered peaks rising above the valley. The stunning green beauty of Columbia Lake, the headwaters of the Columbia Basin, came into view. This home for so many humans and countless other species, so many landscapes and watersheds, all depends on water. And this entire viewscape, the sky, sun, atmosphere, landscape, and waterscape, produce the water that makes the lives of all its inhabitants possible. And it is changing. All across British Columbia, Canada, and the planet, the climate is changing, impacting the water that sustains life. But alongside the changes already happening and the threats to water security, another phenomenon is growing. Through the work of Living Lakes Canada and numerous other watershed stewards, we are informing, engaging, and supporting communities across the Columbia Basin, the Okanagan, the Oldman Watershed in Alberta, the Yukon, and other communities across BC and Canada. This collaboration is empowering communities to become involved, to push for change, for safeguards, for informed policy, and decisions that enhance freshwater security. It is this collaboration that will affect change. Collaboration with communities, First Nations, industry, scientists, funders, youth, and with local, provincial, and federal governments. Collaboration to combine Indigenous knowledge with Western science, as modeled by LLC's Foreshore Integrated Management Planning. Collaboration to collect, monitor, and map dependable freshwater data, as in our groundwater programs and our Columbia Basin Water Monitoring Framework, making all our data, along with data from government and industry, available to the public and all decision makers through LLC's Open Water Hub, and to use that data in such critical areas as wildfire suppression. Collaboration to monitor changes, to gauge impacts, to restore aquatic ecosystems, as in our watershed restoration program. Collaboration to identify opportunities, develop sound water policies for the protection of watersheds and aquifers, and to build a framework that encourages and empowers decision makers to make and enforce sustainable decisions. Water connects us all. Each and every one of us, individually and collectively, can make a difference. And in doing so, we make this planet a better place for all. It is exciting and inspiring to be with all of you here, upholding the mission of Living Lakes Canada, collaborating to protect water in a changing climate. I thank all of you for taking the time in your busy lives to join us this evening. And now I'd like to introduce Scott Meakin, Treasurer of Living Lakes Canada, and Brian Duffett, our Finance Manager, to deliver LLC's financial statements and Treasurer's report.
Brian, I'm assuming you have control of the presentation.
Next slide there, Genevieve. There you go.
Yeah, thanks very much. So as Laura said, I'm Scott Meakin. I'm the new treasurer for Living Lakes Canada. I took on the role earlier in the fiscal year. So first of all, I'd like to thank the organization itself, because we've had some really trying times financially in the markets and in the economy generally, as everybody is very aware. But we've managed to weather the storm extremely well. As you know, last year we went through some reorganization and some trimming of some of our programs, and we're now in a position that we're starting to grow some of those programs again. We're starting to add a couple programs into the mix. And all in all, we remain in extremely sound financial situation. One of the key metrics that we use in Living Lakes Canada is the months of funding that we have for our existing programs. And right now we are fully funded for all of our programs through this fiscal year of 26, 27, through beyond that for several more months. So that doesn't mean that we have, buckets and buckets of money, but we're very comfortable with where we are, and we still have and will continue to have funding challenges. So if there's any member or anybody who's on this meeting who has any ideas, suggestions, or links to potential funders, please reach out to us, and we'll do the legwork. But if you have any ideas whatsoever, just reach out and say, yeah, have you thought about this? And we will certainly take it under advisement and, grab the bull by the horns if we can. Again, this year, we received what we'll call a clean report from our auditor. And this really attests to the financial controls that Living Lakes has in place. And we're really proud of that. And we've matured as an organization over the last number of years, because getting a clean report through the accounting standards for not-for-profit organizations which is the set of rules, if you will, that we use in our accounting. And Brian's going to explain a little bit of that as he goes through our financials. And so with that, I will actually hand it back over to Brian, as he's done in years past, and he will get into the numbers a little bit for everybody. And so if you have any questions, please hold those and we will address them at a later point. Thanks.
Thank you, Scott. Yeah, nice to be with everybody. My name is Brian Duffett. I'm the finance manager at Living Lakes Canada. I'm a professional accountant, among a few other things. I've been with Living Lakes since 2022. This will be, I'm gonna review the financial statements that the auditor prepared. It's gonna be light, it's gonna be brief, yet valuable. And I promise it's only going to take me a few minutes here to get through it, and then we can move on with the rest of the evening. So if you can go to the next slide there, Genevieve, and we'll get into it. So these are the added highlights. So the numbers that I'm going to present are based on the fiscal year ending November 30th, 2025. We had an independent audit completed by the accounting firm Pike and Associates. As Scott mentioned, they issued an unmodified, clean opinion stating that the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the society's financial position in accordance with ASNPO. And I'm surprised Scott mentioned those, because I said that you won't hear that acronym anymore in the presentation, so you don't need to memorize it. If it does come up again, something has gone terribly wrong, but you should be good. So total revenue for 2025, what we more commonly refer to as funding at Living Lakes or in the nonprofit world, was around 2.3 million this year, a decrease of 26% from 3.1 million the previous fiscal year. Some of the funding challenges that Scott had mentioned, we addressed those funding challenges by lowering our operating expenses in the past year by about 29%, down to 2.3 million. At the end of our year, we're in a surplus position of around 78,000. I'm going to get into that a little bit more when I talk about the statement of revenue and expenses. We remain in a financially stable position with strong cash and investments. Next slide. Okay, so this pie chart is our funding picture for the last fiscal year, and it sort of shows the diversity across our funders. So government is our biggest slice of pie, and that's the three different levels of government, making up about 51%. Foundations are at 36%. Other sources of revenue, which would be wage subsidies, fee for service, and interest income, makes up 7%. Corporate donations or corporate funding is at 4%, and donations are 2%. Next slide. So here's our expenses, 2.31 million for the year. And across the different Living Lakes programs, it plays out that the monitoring framework is our largest piece at 38%, which includes the percent allocated to the work described in our upcoming feature presentation tonight. Our lakes program is at 26%, which includes programs like foreshore integrated management planning. Rivers and tributaries are at 10%, which includes a program such as Columbia Valley Restoration. Groundwater at 11, admin 11, and lastly, fundraising at 5. Next. So a lot of information on this slide. This is the audited revenue and expense statement. I'll just highlight some of the key pieces. The top of the statement there is our revenue, our funding, and you can see the different streams adding up to about 2.3 million. The middle section of the report are our expenses, a couple of notes on the expenses. 88% of Living Lakes expenses are people-based costs, so 53% for our staff, and another 35% for our professional subcontractors. Other areas would be like program development at 4%, travel at 2%, everything else on the list almost very minor. But when we get down to the bottom of the section, it's our interest income and our bottom line, which I mentioned was 78,000, a surplus of 78,000 this year versus a deficiency of 20,000 the year before. Those numbers are a little bit misleading because when you look at that, you might think, oh, you really had a great year last year compared to a loss the year before, but it doesn't that's not a true picture of the story. The swings on the bottom line is more related to how the organization recognizes grant income, and the nature of the ebbs and flows of our multi-year government and foundation grants. A better an accounting tip, a better way to assess the financial health of the organization or any nonprofit organization for that matter would be not to look at the bottom line on the income statement, but to look at the net assets position and the statement of financial position, which is our next slide, Genevieve. So here's our statement of financial position. We've got cash in the bank of 520,000 to end the year. Short-term investments of 2.5 million. That's liquid investments that we're going to be using to fund our operations in this fiscal year. Total assets of 3.3 million. Our liabilities are almost entirely made up of our deferred revenue, which is funding, restricted funding that we've received upfront to fund future projects that are going to be happening this fiscal year. And then the end of the report, our net assets position, which, as I mentioned, is really a great measure of financial health for a nonprofit. And ours is currently at 881,000, which is about 36% of our annual budget. So it's sort of like a reserve emergency fund measure of financial stability. And across the nonprofit industry, 36% is considered appropriate for resiliency, not too much, could be higher, could also be a lot lower. So we feel comfortable about that position as we end the year. So all in all, we end the year in a strong, healthy financial position, and I'll now open it up for any financial questions before we make a motion to approve the audited statement.
You did such a bang-up job, Brian. There aren't any questions.
Sounds good. Well, if you think of a question later, you know where to find me. On an island in the Atlantic.
So if there are no questions, do I have someone that would like to make a motion to approve the auditor's report, the financial report?
I can make the motion, Laura.
Thanks, Kat. And is there someone that can
I'll
second?
second it. It's Liz.
Okay, thanks you, Liz, for seconding the motion. All in favor? Raise your hand. Anyone opposed? So the report as presented is approved. Okay, so we will be, thank you, Scott and Brian, for your presentation. And We'll now move on to the election of directors. This year we have 3 directors that are currently halfway through a 2-year term, Dr. Paul Bach, Elizabeth Hendricks, and Ramsha Ahmed. And as such, these directors do not need to be re-elected. As I am one of the directors who are standing for re-election, I'll step aside for this portion of the meeting, and I've asked Liz Hendricks to take over this portion of the meeting to oversee that election. Liz?
Thank you, Laura. The following directors are standing for re-election. We have Laura, Scott, Devin, and Anne. Laura Bell, as you've already been introduced, is our current chair and has served on the board since 2020. Scott Meakin, our current treasurer, has served on the board since 2022. Devin Anderson is our current vice chair, and Devin has served on the board since 2023. And Anne Muter, our current secretary, has served on the board since 2023. Members will have received these details and bios for each in an email prior to today. I will now ask for a motion to re-elect these directors as a slate. May I have a member propose this motion?
I can propose this motion. Arlo here.
Thank you, Arlo. May I have a seconder?
I can second it.
Thank you, Benedict. All members in favor of the motion to re-elect Laura, Scott, Devin, and Anne, please raise your hand. I can't actually, I agree, Laura, I can't see. So any members against? I declare the motion carried. And I'll pass the meeting back to you, Laura.
Thanks, Liz. So now I would like to introduce Kat Hartwig, who will present her executive director's report. Kat?
Thanks, Laura. So if you see my finger waving, it's because I'm getting Genevieve to move the slides rather than direct her verbally every time. So it's a little crooked finger like this. So good evening and thank you for attending our AGM. You can move it. It's the next slide. Living Lakes Canada is fortunate to have a dedicated, nope, back one. Thanks. Nope, just stay with the people. Thank you. So, thank you. Living Lakes Canada is fortunate to have a dedicated team of intrinsically motivated individuals delivering programs to protect freshwater ecosystems and biodiversity. We are deeply grateful to our volunteer board, expert advisors, partners, and funders, without whom this work simply would not be possible. Next slide. Global water security and climate issues seem overwhelming, but the rubber really hits the road at the local community level where impacts are felt most acutely. Our work is focused at this community level while still having a ripple effect for freshwater protection across Canada. This evening, I'll highlight 2 of our community-based programs. The first is our groundwater monitoring work and is germane given current drought conditions. Thank you. In many parts of southern BC and Alberta, surface water has been drying and drought prevails. And so the need to understand groundwater through aquifer size, recharge rates, and vulnerability is essential. Groundwater is often referred to as blue gold, a hidden treasure, which accounts for nearly half the water withdrawn for domestic use worldwide and is often overlooked in freshwater protection policies. Next slide. Approximately 30% of Canadians rely on groundwater for domestic use, and groundwater monitoring networks vary widely across Canada. For example, Manitoba monitors approximately 850 wells, Ontario 450, and BC 250. Next slide. In the Columbia Basin, our groundwater team has equipped volunteer observation wells with sensors to record data year-round, thereby generating long-term data sets which complement provincial monitoring networks. What began as a pilot project, monitoring only 2 observation wells over 8 years ago, has grown into one of the most comprehensive community-driven data sets in Canada. Next slide. And all of our data is publicly accessible on the Water Hub. Next slide. Today, we are monitoring 32 observation wells across the basin, and recently this model has successfully transferred to support the Old Man Watershed's efforts to better understand watershed security options for their communities in southern Alberta. Next slide. Data can reveal important patterns. The past 8 years of our monitoring in the basin has shown a decline in groundwater levels, with some of the lowest recorded levels occurring last year. To examine the state of groundwater supply and vulnerability on a regional scale, we published an aquifer assessment report for the entire Columbia Basin in 2025. The report identifies previously unmapped aquifers and highlights those most vulnerable to stress and thus seen as hotspots for local communities. The science is straightforward. If withdrawals exceed recharge, groundwater levels will decline. Once a well or an aquifer runs dry, a quick fix is unlikely. Recharge processes can take months, years, and even centuries, and this balance is often disrupted by land use pressures, extractive industries, and climate change. In most regions, groundwater monitoring is not at the scale needed to understand long-term local levels. Next slide. In early 2026, the UN declared that we've entered into an era of global water bankruptcy and that we're now living beyond our hydrological means. The imbalance of water supply versus demand around the world is reported daily, covering everything from low moisture content in snow and soil to water depletion from AI centers to aquifers running completely dry. Despite this knowledge, our water policies remain fraught with multi-jurisdictional gridlocks and still lack the progressive strength required to address cumulative impacts on our freshwater ecosystems. And this makes our community-based stewardship all the more essential. Next slide. The second program example I wanted to share with you this evening is one of our progressive programs exemplifying multiple scales of local impact. Our Foreshore Integrated Management Planning Program, or FIMP as it's known, is managed by Georgia Peck and her team. This program applies two complementary tools to understand the well-being of lakes, using both a federally developed lake foreshore monitoring program protocol and local Indigenous knowledge and values framework. Next slide. This tool was developed collaboratively with the Upper Nicola Band and Living Lakes. It was guided by Silk's Chapik oral stories and rooted in two-eyed seeings. And it is a framework that brings together Indigenous knowledge and Western science by ensuring both lenses inform each phase of the shoreline survey. This new process was first applied to Nicola Lake in 2023 and all subsequent FIMP surveys. Next slide. Last year, Georgia's team focused efforts within Silk's Okanagan territory for Kalamaka and Wood Lakes, where over the past century, development, privatization, and recreation have reshaped lake shores by impacting ecological integrity and limiting Silk's access to places once central to their way of life. This year, the Okanagan Indian Band, West Bank First Nation, and Living Lakes are co-leading a new shoreline survey on Okanagan Lake to document ecological conditions alongside cultural and archaeological values. Many archaeological sites once found along the shorelines have been lost to road construction and residential development. Yet, some stories have endured through community knowledge and collective memory of lakes, allowing a cultural legacy of place-based knowledge to resurface through both through lives experience and now this cultural assessment. Next slide, please. Understanding the historical and current state of these shorelines is key because by documenting cultural knowledge alongside ecological data, the lake survey creates an opportunity relevant far beyond the data gathered. Not only is this lake survey methodology unique to each nation's territory, but the information gathered will inform lake management decisions made by provincial, local, and First Nations governments, while supporting and strengthening sovereignty and stewardship within the nation and providing us all with meaningful learnings and reconciliation opportunities. Next slide. So thank you for accompanying us in 2025 and beyond. Your continued commitment is instrumental in cultivating our collective responsibility to help preserve life-supporting ecosystems. We remain grateful for the privilege to have some agency in serving our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Kat. And I don't know if everyone could see, but Maggie was busily adding some links to the chat, to the Zoom chat. So all the work that Kat discussed in her report, as well as the financials by Scott and Brian, are bundled in the 2025 Impact Report. This report is now available online, and we've added to the chat now for you to check out and learn more. So you can check out all these links in the chat section. Kat, did you want to invite questions now, or do people want to wait till later?
Sure, it's totally happy to field questions now or wait until the end.
So we're happy to take questions now if anyone has questions while they're fresh.
What happens when the goes down? What do they do about it?
Okay, well, thank you, Kat. And I'd like to now introduce Paige Thurston, who's going to deliver our feature presentation for this evening, and I'll let her introduce what that presentation is. Over to you, Paige.
Thank you, Laura. Really nice to see everybody on the call this evening, and I'm so happy to be here sharing a presentation on our water resource mapping for wildfire suppression program. My name is Paige Thurston, and I am the Wildfire Program Manager at Living Lakes Canada. You can jump ahead there, Genevieve. We have 3 special guests joining us on the call as well this evening, who we will introduce you to later on in the presentation. And again, Maggie will be dropping a few links into the chat throughout the presentation. So if you'd like to read more about any of the content that we're covering tonight, I'd encourage you to have a look at those resources. So in terms of how we'll spend our time here, we'll start with providing some background information about the origins of this program. We'll talk a bit about how it's grown from there, some of the processes and learnings that we've uncovered as we've delivered the program, and we'll have plenty of time at the end for questions. So just to set the stage here for our conversation, when we talk about water and wildfire in rural areas, there are a number of different factors that are converging to create a significant challenge. Firstly, across Canada, we are experiencing hotter and drier summers and increasingly intense wildfire activity. At the same time, we're seeing changes in the timing and quantity of surface water and stream flows. Here in the Columbia Basin, warmer winters are impacting the ability to store water in our snowpacks, and that snow is melting earlier and faster in the spring, leading to lower water levels during the wildfire season. Living Lakes and our partners are monitoring those changes to stream flow through our Columbia Basin Water Monitoring Network. At the same time, many of the communities that we work with to monitor water are quite rural, with homes nestled into forested landscapes on steep slopes. Wildfires occurring within these areas can be complex to respond to and can put people's homes, businesses, and safety at risk. Within those same communities, water can also be difficult to find due to the complex terrain, mountain hydrology, and those changes experienced to stream flows. Additionally, small streams are often not accurately mapped or may have shifted their course over time. Meanwhile, we're increasingly seeing wildfire crews arriving to respond to fires from outside of the local area. These crews are not necessarily familiar with the local landscape and terrain and may face challenges in getting oriented and finding water on the landscape. Community members often hold valuable information that they want to share with wildfire crews, but they're often unable to communicate with the crews directly during an emergency. So all of these factors combined are resulting in slower response times and increased risk to communities and emergency responders, as well as greater costs to cover fire response and damages. So this is where our Water Resources for Wildfire Suppression program offers a valuable solution. We're working with local communities to gather local knowledge, pair that with our water monitoring data. We're collecting additional information, and we're compiling all of that into interactive maps, which can be shared with emergency responders well in advance of a wildfire breaking out. So to break that down a little bit further, we're producing comprehensive maps which contain detailed information about things like stream channels, stream flow rates, specific locations where wildfire pumps could be deployed. Additionally, in some rural areas, people install water standpipes for the purpose of wildfire suppression. Other people may have high-capacity irrigation systems, which can be used for wildfire suppression purposes. So those are measured and mapped through this program. We also track unmapped access routes, such as driveways or ATV trails. We mark important community buildings, such as emergency supply sheds or muster points, as well as helicopter access points. And we compile all of this into easy-to-use maps. So this project originated in the community of Argenta at the north end of Kootenay Lake. Living Lakes and some of our partners had been monitoring stream flows and climate conditions in that area for quite a few years, and we'd developed quite a good understanding of the local hydrology. The community of Argenta has an amazing community wildfire brigade called the Argenta Safety and Preparedness Society, or ASAP. And in 2023, ASAP approached us with a request to collaborate, pairing the expertise of both of our organizations to produce the first set of water resource maps for wildfire suppression. The resulting maps and report were published in spring of 2024. Not long after that, a wildfire did break out above the community, and our maps were immediately put to the test by the ASAP crew and BC Wildfire Service. Thankfully, the crews were able to successfully control this fire and minimize damage to nearby communities. Following that event, we received positive feedback from both crews about the utility of the maps. It was estimated that having those maps compiled in advance saved the crews up to 2 full days of field reconnaissance time on the ground, and that is pretty significant when we think about the speed at which a wildfire can move through a community or a forested area. So following that Argenta fire, we started to receive inquiries and requests from others who wanted to produce water resource maps for their own communities. And over the last year and a half, we've been able to offer this program to 5 of those communities in the Canadian Columbia Basin, as shown on the map here. So each of these communities is quite rural. Some have limited routes for access in and out of the community, and some are outside of the jurisdiction of a formalized fire department. In each community, we work alongside a local community partner organization to deliver the program. Our local partners are really on the front lines of community resilience and emergency preparedness, and I've learned so much from working with each of them, so I wanted to include some of their perspectives in tonight's conversation. We've got 3 of our local community champions joining the call tonight, and we'll introduce them to you now. I'd also like to acknowledge the support and guidance that we've received from Rick Valentine of ASAP as we've worked to scale this project up. At this time, I'll invite Nikki to introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nikki Blackshaw, and my husband and I moved to the Slocan Valley 10 years ago to live off grid and build a self-sustainable lifestyle. And we were significantly impacted by the fires in 2024, sustaining structural losses and fire damage on our property. But we were not alone in that. There was a number of other residents locally that were impacted, so REAPS was formed, the Red Mountain Road and Enterprise Creek Emergency Preparedness Society, and we are a group of volunteers that are keenly interested in emergency preparedness, response readiness, and long-term recovery for our community, and we were really thrilled that our area was chosen as a priority area for this mapping project, and we were really excited to work with Paige and her team to help pull this together.
Thank you, Nikki. It's been great to work with you as well. We've also got Arthur joining the call. Arthur, I'll let you introduce yourself now.
Hi there. My name is Arthur. I'm with the Yakadakmukliat Fire Emergency Department, and work with Wade with the services there. And we have a fire department currently moving towards Exeter, but we also do a lot of rural suppression efforts and contracts with BC Wildfire. I'm happy to be here, and I think, did you want me to answer that question you had for me, Paige, now, or did you?
We'll get to that one in a couple slides here.
Jargon, huh? Okay, cool. Yeah, well, I'm happy to be here and representing Grasmere and Yakadakmukliat. Thank you.
Thank you, Arthur. And then next up, we've got Michelle representing our Windlaw project.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, my name is Michelle Griffiths. I work for the community forest out here in the Slocan Valley. That's Slocan Integral Forestry Cooperative. And yeah, we had the privilege to work with Living Lakes Canada on this water mapping project for pretty much north of Windlaw to just south of Windlaw. And it builds upon the work that CIFCO has done historically to reduce wildfire risks and also help prepare the community. So it just builds upon that. I also am the program coordinator for the Slocan Valley Wildfire Resiliency Program, which is a collaborative program between CIFCO and the 3 villages in the Slocan Valley, which would be Silverton, Slocan, and New Denver. That program's been running for, I think, 7 years, and I've been the coordinator for 6 of those years. And the idea of that program is educational based for fire smart practices, wildfire preparedness, mitigation for homeowners. It's a multifaceted program. And so this idea of mapping water resources for wildfire response just continues to build upon the foundation of preparing the community for wildfire. And obviously we've had several impactful wildfires at this point. And so, yeah, everything and anything we can do as a community, that is kind of the name of the game at this point. So yeah, that's the kind of work I'm doing. And yeah, very happy to have worked with Living Lakes Canada on this project.
Thank you, Michelle. We've got such a great team of people supporting this program. So let's talk a little bit about how we carry out this work in each community. Community engagement is really at the foundation of the work. We're documenting the wealth of knowledge that local community members hold about the places where they live. So our community partners play such a big role in building community trust and ensuring that we reach the right people in the community to invite participation. So Nikki, I wondered if you could share a bit with us about how you reached your community and how you achieved such a high rate of participation on your project.
Sure. I mean, it really was a team effort. The entire REAPS team was instrumental in the success of the project because we were so dedicated in making sure that every resident in the Enterprise Creek and Red Mountain Road area was contacted and was able to participate in the project if they chose to. The photo that's shown here is one of the open houses that we had in Silverton to kind of kick off the community engagement piece, and it was well attended. And whoever wasn't at the open house, we actually kind of went, so to speak, door to door, making sure other residents were aware of this project so that they could participate. And we just really felt that preparedness was a really big piece of this. As Paige mentioned previously, a number of creeks aren't properly mapped, and our property in particular was one of these such instances. So helping to make sure residents have peace of mind and responders know what resources are available to them and where to find those resources so they can act quickly is crucial.
Thank you for that, Nikki. So from there, building on the information that's been provided by the community, our field crews hit the ground and start gathering data. So we map streams, we measure their flows, and we identify locations where wildfire pumps could be deployed. We also meet with interested landowners to measure and document standpipes, fire hydrants, and irrigation systems. And as part of those conversations, people often talk with us about how past wildfires have impacted their watersheds or changes that they've experienced to their water supply. So Michelle, I know this is an area where CIFCO has quite a bit of experience. So I wondered if you could talk with us a bit about how wildfire impacts watersheds and what CIFCO is doing to address that.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, for sure, huge impact on our watersheds. And back in I think it was 2019, CIFCO actually started a water monitoring program on the Winlaw Creek watershed and the Troza Creek watershed. That was actually, we were doing a year's monitoring before doing some prescribed field treatments within those watersheds. So the idea of making sure that, we were recording if there was any impacts or whatever to the watershed. So it actually worked out during the heat dome of 2021 when the Trozo Creek wildfire started up. We had the monitoring program already in place for those 2 watersheds. So we continued that monitoring program to 2023. And in 2022, the data was collected and put into some reports. So we were collecting both water quality, quantity, and what more or less the long and the short of what was found was post wildfire of 2021. So in the summer of 2022, on Trozo Creek and Winlaw Creek, what was observed was the max discharge rate had more than doubled during the freshet of that year. And the freshet also peaked at least a month earlier. So, that might have been a bit of summer things and weather patterns, but it did peak earlier, and then the lows dropped off quicker. So it peaked quick and fast, and during that freshet, turbidity, coliform counts, and also metal data was taken for like samples of like different contaminants. And following the fire, turbidity spiked, coliform count spiked, and also the metal level spiked in both those streams. So more or less the takeaway from it, when we have a wildfire in our watersheds, it has a huge impact on the quality and the quantity and timing of flow of those streams. So it's a huge issue. So the more we can help mitigate some of those risks and also protect our watersheds is really important. And then currently, CIFCO is working with Living Lakes Canada and Slocan River Streamkeepers to start up the water monitoring program again on the Winlaw Creek watershed. So we're going to be doing data collection for water quality and quantity again. And just builds upon the previous data that has been collected in those watersheds. It's a long-term monitoring station on that stream. So we're just trying to continue to gather more data. And the idea is to just show trends of quality and quantity over time. Not only the impacts of wildfire, but our changing climate and for the users on those streams, and just to provide that service to the community so they know what's kind of happening in that watershed. And it kind of gives us a bit of a benchmark of what's kind of happening to our streams in the Slocan Valley with the impacts of wildfire and climate change.
Perfect. Thank you, Michelle. The data sets that you were able to provide for both the Winlaw and Red Mountain Road and Enterprise Creek projects were both so valuable to the mapping process. So once that field data has been collected, our team gets to work in the office to prepare the finalized reports and maps. We prepare these in a few different formats. So interactive digital maps, which can be viewed in field apps, such as Avenza, which is what BC Wildfire Service uses, or desktop applications like ArcGIS and Google Earth. We also produce printable maps that can be stored in fire sheds, fire trucks, or elsewhere that the crews can rely on if other systems or technology fails. As these maps do include detailed information about private properties, we safeguard that information by producing two different versions of the maps. So a public-facing version, which omits sensitive information, and a professional version that includes all of the details. And those details are only shared with the relevant emergency responders. So on the left-hand side of this slide here, you can see an image of the public version of the maps, which were recently completed for the Red Mountain Road and Enterprise Creek area. If this were the professional version, you'd see a lot more points on the map than are shown here. In the professional version, you'd also be able to select any one of these points and open up a table which contains the details associated with that point. So in this fictional example, we're looking at the data table for a standpipe. So we can see that it includes the landowner's contact information, the source stream for that water system, some details about the hardware that's installed there, as well as the pressure and flow rate of that system. So quite a bit of detail associated with each point on the map. Site photos are also included to help crews to locate the feature and to know what to expect when they arrive. Nikki, now that the maps have been completed for your community, I wondered if you could share any feedback about the finished product and how you're feeling with that.
Sure. A number of residents actually were pretty keen to give feedback and shared that it did help them feel more prepared and that it did give them some peace of mind, knowing that responders had the information necessary to respond for the next event. But I will say we don't look at this as complete, because REAPS is really hoping that we will be able to help somehow have ongoing updates to the project, and also as our community and the landscape around us changes, we'd like to be able to capture and catalog those changes as well. So, but for the first iteration of this, it was fantastic, and we have received really positive feedback, and people were genuinely pleased that they got to participate and felt really respected when Living Lakes Canada and REAPS people were on their properties.
Good to hear. Thank you, Nikki. And we really do hope that this can be an ongoing process with updates in the future. So once those maps are completed, we share the files with BC Wildfire and other emergency crews in advance of the upcoming wildfire season so that they have quick access to those maps when they're needed. Arthur, at this point, I wondered if you could talk a little bit about how your team might benefit from having access to this information when responding to a fire. There you go.
Yeah, in various ways, I think it's super beneficial for us to have that, especially when we work with BC Wildfire. A lot of communications identifying water sources for us to use during those peak fire seasons are critical for our response times and just in general effectiveness, especially if we know where they're at and in advance. It's kind of like a preparedness kind of step. So. And then we would also routinely train with those locations as well, and that would allow us to be that much more effective with those locations. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers it, and really appreciate this map.
Thank you for sharing. So throughout this process, we've learned so much from each of our partner organizations and the important work that they do in their communities. So to allow tonight's audience to benefit from some of that experience, I'd like to invite each of our guest speakers to share with us one key message that they would like other communities or decision makers to know about community emergency preparedness. So Michelle, I'll let you start us off there.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much you can say because at this point, most communities across the province have had similar wildfire experience or have been impacted by wildfire. But all I could really say to that point is that we're living in a time of accelerated change. And every action that we take right now as communities to be better prepared, to be more resilient, to be more adaptable to the changes that we are facing as a collective humanity, that is going to greatly affect the outcomes for each community for the next wildfire and natural disaster that we do face. And as we all know, unfortunately, it's not a matter of if, it's when. We've already, in the past, I guess, 10 years, but really the past 5 years, we've had several significant wildfires impact the Slocan Valley. And so, they're increasing in frequency, they're increasing with intensity. And so every action we take individually and also as communities is going to be the difference maker for how we can face these disasters and be ready and prepared in the future. That's what I would say.
Well put, Michelle. Thank you. Nikki, would you like to go next?
Sure. I'll echo everything Michelle said and add to that in rural and remote communities, we really do need to look out for and help one another. I truly believe that we are stronger together.
Thank you, Nikki. Arthur, over to you.
Was that to me? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Yes, go ahead.
And you're just saying like a general piece of effectiveness here of this project?
Exactly. Anything that you'd like that you think other communities should know to be prepared?
Oh yeah. Well, from a fire involvement and just kind of perspective, we constantly engage community members and residents, let them know what they're doing, what we're doing, and what we're up to, and building that relationship so that when that risk happens with a wildfire for either evacuations or whatever kind of response we'll have to have in the area, then we'll be that much more effective in exercising that.
Thank you. The communication piece is so important. So this project has really come such a long way since its inception in 2023. The maps were applied in a wildfire situation in 2024, and we offered the program to 3 additional communities in the following year. We've recently launched the maps for Red Mountain Road and Enterprise Creek. In the year ahead, we will continue working with Arthur and Michelle on the maps for their communities. We're also working with 2 new communities in the year ahead. From these experiences to date, we've developed a scalable template that can really be offered to other communities across our region and in other parts of Canada quite effectively. We currently have a waitlist of 19 communities who we hope to be able to support in future years. Right now, the limiting factor is funding. So we're very hopeful that we'll be able to secure resources that will allow us to continue to share this important work with others. It's been so rewarding for our team to work alongside our community partners to deliver this program over the last few years, and we really look forward to the next steps for the program. At this time, I would like to thank the funders who make this work possible. Your support and your investments in our programming go such a long way in enabling the work to grow and to have a positive impact in our communities. Thank you as well to all of our community partners and the collaborators who've been a part of this journey. And thanks to all of you for joining us tonight. You're most welcome to reach out if you'd like to discuss any of this work further with our team. And I highly encourage you to check out some of the links that Maggie has shared in the chat throughout our presentation tonight. I think from here, we'll move into the question and answer period.
Awesome, Paige. Thank you so much for that presentation. Thank you to all the community partners who are able to join us as well. So like Paige said, we'll be moving into the question period. So please feel free to raise your hand. You can unmute yourself or also just simply ask questions over in the chat. I'll be monitoring things there. Paige, from Bill Wells, we do have a question already. They want to know, how are things proceeding with the BC Fire Center?
It's a great question. So we've had a really constant kind of line of communication with BC Wildfire Service throughout the development and delivery of this program. So they've shared some great insights with us in terms of what they're looking for when they, arrive on the ground to respond to a fire, and helped us to identify some priority areas as well. So great support from BC Wildfire Service on the program.
Page. From Caitlin Henniker with the Elk River Alliance, we have, where are Living Lake's main grant sectors and which are increasing and decreasing in terms of available funding? And how does BC compare to other provinces?
That might be a question for Brian, more organizationally.
I can speak to that as well, actually. Sure. Yeah, Caitlin. Yeah, I think there is a survey that goes around for nonprofits across Canada, and it basically tells you what's trending. And actually, Brian can answer this as well, because he just sent out a survey, or he just sent out an information about what's happening in the funding realm of things for non-for-profits. So there's a couple of surveys that are showing what's trending in terms of less or more individual donations or corporate donations or foundations. But Brian, yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to jump in on you. Do you want to speak to that as well?
Is that the Charity Village one, Kat?
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, thanks.
Brian, did you have anything to add there?
No, that's good.
Okay, great. We've got another question from the chat here, another kind of organizational one. Stan wants to know, does LLC have any plans for water quality testing while BC Hydro works on the Gen 6 build at the Revelstoke Dam on the Columbia River?
Not currently. We don't have any plans to do that.
Stan, I think you might have sent us an email about this as well, or we did receive an email asking about this, and I just spoke with someone at BC Hydro about this yesterday and was going to follow up. So we can follow up via email about that with you, Stan. Thanks for your question.
Next we have John Eaton. Is LLC connected to the community watershed fire mitigation efforts in supporting reintroduction of runoff water into groundwater?
I'm not familiar with that initiative, so I don't know that we are, but I'd be interested to hear more about it from you, John. Maybe we can have a follow-up conversation about that. We've certainly been looking at the relationship between wildfire and groundwater, and ways that we could start to look to groundwater as a resource that could potentially be used to respond to wildfire while continuing to encourage the effective and responsible management of the groundwater resource.
Page. From Mickey Flanagan, we have, how would a community get this work made for their own community? Is there a wait list?
That's a great question. There is a wait list. We've got currently at least 19 communities who've reached out requesting support to deliver this type of work. So Mickey, if you're interested to have this type of work delivered in your own community, I'd encourage you to reach out to us via email. Once we hear from you, we can have kind of a scoping conversation and understand a bit more about your community, the risks that you're facing, kind of the size of the area that you're looking at, those sorts of factors, and talk about next steps to try to get that covered. We certainly love to hear from communities that are interested in the work. So you're welcome to reach out.
Great. So chat's quieted down a little bit. Again, feel free to drop any questions there. Also, you can raise your hand, unmute yourself. Do we have any other questions, either for Paige's presentation that she just presented, or going back to Kat's presentation? Any thoughts may have been have come up over the course of the presentations? No, we have John. Oh, we can't hear you, John. I think you might have an audio problem, unfortunately. Still nothing, unfortunately, on our end. All right, you'll put it in the chat while we wait for John to put his question in the chat there. Mickey has followed up, just wondering, what does this type of work cost, Paige, and how is it funded?
Those are two great questions. So the costs are dependent on a number of factors. So things like the size and complexity of the area, the population density, the types of infrastructure that the community might want to include, that type of thing. Here in the Columbia Basin, we're seeing costs ranging from about $100,000 to $120,000 per project. Those are in areas where water data already exists and where we have field crews established to support the work. So we're currently exploring what it would look like to deliver this type of work in areas where little or no water data currently exists, or ways that we could train others to complete the work in areas where we don't have an established field crew. In terms of the sources of funding, over the last several years, we've had significant funding for 5 projects through the Columbia Basin Trust. We're very grateful for that. We've also received support from independent foundations, and in particular from the insurance sector. This program really seems to resonate with the insurance sector, which has been great to see. We've had a lot of conversations with the provincial and federal governments, but we haven't received any direct funding from those sources to date. There seems to be a bit of a programming gap where this program is not quite falling under wildfire prevention, and it's not quite falling under wildfire suppression. So we are finding we kind of slip between the cracks of existing funding programs. We don't have a lot of confirmed funding for next year either. So we're really hopeful to be able to meet that gap and be able to start to support some of these communities that are on our wait list currently.
I have a question.
For sure, Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question. I mean, it's very interesting to hear from Brian the costs of this and what Paige has been saying, how difficult it is to get the funding. But is there a basic economic benefit from the work? Something that you really, can really make a difference to communities in the funding? Well, I know it's a great idea, but what about the economic benefit?
It's a great question you raised there, Paul. And I think it's, when we really think about the scale of costs in terms of responding to a wildfire and getting a crew out there on the ground. And then when we think about the consequences of a wildfire impacting homes and businesses, as well as kind of the social costs of evacuating communities and the trauma that those people are experiencing. And then we look at the cost to deliver this type of programming. It's really quite a modest investment that can lead to significant savings in the longer term.
Thank you. Good.
Yes.
Thank you, Paul. I see John has put his question in the chat here. So can you give any updates on the groundwater program happening in the Crow's Nest Pass area? So John, referring here to our Old Man Watershed groundwater monitoring program. Kat, would you like to take this one?
Yeah, I mean, we just finished hiring someone to take on that role to be a coordinator in Southern Alberta for that work. And so I haven't had an update from Selena this week, but it was definitely on her priority to make sure that she connected with folks in the Crow's Nest Pass area. Andy, I don't know if you have anything to add to that. or Selena if she's on even. Yeah, so sorry, John, I can't give you an update, but if we have your email, we can.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now,
Oh,
John.
there we go. Okay. Yeah. No, I was just wondering, it seems like I had heard something that there was a new person being hired. I'm just wondering what was going on there. We're still looking for the third well for the data reader to be installed. So just just want to make sure things are happening.
No, things are definitely happening. Are you connected with Richard or
Yeah,
Johnson?
you bet. In fact, I just sent him an email today with some springs that I tested.
Great. Yeah.
Great, John.
Hi, everyone. Sorry to interrupt. John, I'll give you a call tomorrow. My name is Siobhan and I work with Selena, and I'll be very happy to be a touch point for you. I can just get you on the phone tomorrow and give you a quick update over the phone.
Okay. Do you have my number?
Absolutely. Yeah. Pretty sure
Okay,
we
good.
have it from Selena. Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.
Ron. We've got a comment here from Martin Carver. So a wonderful presentation on such a very relevant program. A thank you to LLC and their partners for their continued dedication. Thank you, Martin. A lovely little message there. Again, we've got another comment here from Suzanne Bailey, I think along with a question. The value of the program really depends on how quickly the information changes. Do you have any idea on how stable the information in the maps are?
Great question, Suzanne. And so much of our work, revolves around the fact that our watersheds are changing and are changing rapidly. So, in a perfect world, we would love to be able to update these maps on maybe a biannual basis or maybe every 5 years, something like that. Currently just have funding to deliver these programs once in each community. And at the very least, that serves as a significant upgrade from the information that is available, prior to doing this mapping work. But it would be great to be able to provide more regular updates of the maps in future years.
Do we have any other questions for Paige or other LLC program questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure, go ahead, Paul.
I have a question from Kat's presentation. It was really good to see how you're measuring the amount of water that's in the ground and how much it's likely to be and what it's going down at. Are communities doing anything about that declining amount? Are we able to give them some advice as to what to do about a declining aquifer? Or is it just a statistic that it's there for them to see? Because they don't do anything about it. It's just a bit of information.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's an 8-year information piece that we have, and when we're told often that these can't be labeled as trends unless it's like 20 to 30 years. And so, Paige, I mean, I don't know if you want to chime in or not, but Paul, that it's a good question, and you would think, oh, well, this seems to be obvious that we're moving down a slippery slope, but yeah, I don't think that we're able to draw that conclusion. You can simply say this is the trend that we've seen in 8 years. And one would think that we would exercise the precautionary principle and then look at exactly what's drawing down. But groundwater is so complicated, and we're so far behind in terms of our monitoring and understanding what to do there. And Paige, I don't know if you had more insights because you were heading up that vulnerability study.
I've got a hand up there. Arlo, did you want to chime in first?
Yeah, I was just going to add that there are some circumstances where there are government representatives that have requested to be notified when certain levels are reached in some of the aquifers. So there are watershed management plans associated with certain jurisdictional areas that specifically in those plans have, if this well gets to below this level, then we need to reassess whether or not we are using this well for its specific current use. So that is an example of where these data are being used as a reference point for a shift in decision making around where our water sources, domestic water sources, commercial water sources are coming from.
Thanks, Arlo. That's a good thank you. That's good to know.
Yeah. We just had a comment in the chat, Adam Ben, looking to see if there's any way to connect with someone about getting involved or volunteering with Living Lakes Canada, and if this presentation has inspired you to maybe want to get involved with LLC on the ground through volunteer work, you can always reach out to info@livinglakescanada.ca. Cynthia Fraser dropped those details into the chat as well. We'd love to hear from you. And for more specifically towards wildfire, we also have the wildfire email in there as well. Give it another moment here for any last minute questions. Adam, thank you for your kind words. All right. If you have any other questions that come up after the meeting, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We love to hear from you. Happy to answer any questions if they come to you a bit later. So without further ado, I will hand things back over to Laura Bell. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Maggie. And that was an excellent presentation, Paige, and the guest speakers. Thank you very much for that, and great questions. Well, I just want to thank all of the presenters, the guest speakers. I want to thank all of the team at Living Lakes Canada, and I'd like to thank all of you that joined us this evening. We're all in this together, and I think now I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone.